Hello, and welcome to the Elevate Entrepreneur, where we decode the success of some of the greatest entrepreneurs that I've met, that I know, that I trust. These individuals have not only built their business up, but they've also impacted lives for the better. Here you will learn not only how to grow your business, but also inspire you to want to be just a little bit better. I'm your host, Raylan Davis. My entire intention is to remove obstacles and excuses as to why people can't realize they deserve more. With that being said, let's jump into this week's episode. Stay motivated, stay elevated. Our guest today is a public speaking coach who helps people overcome anxiety and improve their skills while presenting to an audience. With years of experience in the industry, he has developed a range of techniques and strategies to help individuals with their authentic voice, which I want to come back to definitely through what does that word even mean. But he helps people actually connect to their audience, deliver powerful and impactful presentations. So whether you're like an experienced public speaker or you're a coach or consultant that's listening to this right now that has that dream of speaking on stages, which, by the way, majority of my clients have said this, so you're going to be tons of help to them. This is definitely for you. Nathan Gold, once again, thank you for joining me, man.
You're welcome. I'm pleased to be here.
So right out the gate, I wanted to ask about this, which is I was super surprised. I did a live workshop a few months ago, and the audience was people that were already my clients. A couple of them were not my clients yet, but it was all talking about information I already knew. It was just a workshop. It wasn't a public speak. It wasn't like me on stage with dozens of people, right? I think we had 20 people there.
Okay.
I was incredibly surprised that I got nervous, actually. Now, keep in mind, Nathan, I used to be a professional MMA fighter. I used to get in a cage half naked and fight grown men, and I was actually nervous. I was not expecting this. So, is it what I kind of alluded, like what I kind of figured it was simply because I actually cared about the information. I wanted to make sure it landed. I wanted to make sure people like actually got the help they needed from this workshop. And maybe what was that, or in your experience, what is this anxiety about presenting? Again, from somebody who used to fight half naked against people, like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, in a way, the same feelings that you had the moment the referee said fight are very similar to the feelings you had when you walked up in front of that group of 20 people to start your workshop. It's very similar. It's just how we deal with those feelings inside. We have those natural fight, flight, or freeze reactions to everything in life. Some are much more severe than others, of course. When you go into the cage, you are in fight mode or you're going to be out in 13 seconds, right? You know that. When you're up in front of people, that fight mode is not to hit people, but to communicate with them and have a conversation with them like you and I are having right now. So in a way, it's quite natural. And that's the thing. Every one of us feels nerves. It's just how we deal with them. I have been doing presentations since the early 80s. I've had thousands of people in front of me. I get nervous when I have to walk up in front of 10 people.
Still.
But my nervousness is I'm prepared. I'm excited. It's childlike nervousness. I can't wait to share versus I'm scared to death because I'm not prepared. It would be like, I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but hey,
No, it's good.
If you walked into a cage and you weren't prepared, you're going to die.
Yeah.
But if you walk in and you're prepared and you know you can handle anything that comes your way that maybe you haven't practiced yet, that's the kind of fight mode presenters and communicators need to be in without literally hitting people in the face.
Yeah, and I think that's what like helped was that there's a moment I felt that like kind of anxiousness, and I was like, no, it's not anxiety, it's excitement. And then that helped. And then the other thing was I was like, well, I already know my shit. So even if like something comes up, I can handle it. It's fine. It's very similar to fighting. Like in fighting, you can't anticipate everything. But at some point you go, I can't practice anymore. So I got to kind of let go. And so I'm kind of curious, what did you do? Like, how did you get to this point where you're helping people, you're coaching people on their presentations? And I wouldn't even say just the presentations, because what I also want to talk to you today about the pitch idea, but you're also helping people like investors with their pitches and all of that. How did you even get to this point where that's what you're doing primarily?
Thank you for asking. My whole career was in technology, working for companies like SanDisk and Symbol Technologies. And My job in all of those companies was to go out with the salespeople and do the product demos.
Yeah.
So I got that luxury of being the automatic subject matter expert in the room, whether I was or not,
Yeah.
because salespeople, you know what they say about salespeople and what they say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn
We're
it
full
over.
of shit
Yeah,
most of the
well,
time.
yeah, exactly. Well, you know, anyway, yeah, well, we don't have to go down that route. So that's where I honed all of my presentation skills from two angles. One, how to present, how to communicate effectively and get that interaction with one or however many were in the room. That's always a big one. Like, how do you do that? And the other, which I was very fortunate to have some of the highest paid salespeople in the software business teach me, is how to be persuasive. Because I wasn't there to just demo a bunch of features. In the first week of working with the first salesperson our company hired with, he said, Nathan, I'm going to tell you my little secret right now. FBR. What's that? Whenever we do a demo and you talk about a feature, I want you to make sure that you talk about the benefit of that feature. And if time permits, maybe tell a little story about the reason that feature is there. I have never forgotten FBR, and I always go FB. Sometimes there's not enough time for R.
Yeah.
It's all about the benefits. We don't buy a drill for the sake of having a drill. We buy it for the hole in the wall we can
Yeah.
make. And the hole is sometimes things people don't talk about when they're pitching their products or services. They talk about the drill and the light and this and that, but they don't tell me what it's even for or why I'm going to benefit from it.
Well, I like the reason part of it because it's like because I used to say too, because I my starting point was in sales. I started off online as a sales coach, right? Because most online, coaches and consultants, like they love coaching, they love people, but they don't know necessarily how to sell, or they don't like it, I should say. They know how to most of the time, they just don't like it.
Right.
But the R part of it to me, I used to give that example all the time, which is like people don't buy the drill for the drill itself. They buy it for the whole, but then you go a step further, and this is where the R comes in. And what I used to say, which is this is the part where you inspire, which is what they actually want is not even the whole. They want to be able to hang up a frame of their beautiful family.
There you go.
Right.
And that's selling right there. But most people don't really want to be in sales, but that's also very persuasive in how you get people interested and attached to that which you're talking about. So to finish the quick story that turned out to be a little longer than maybe.
No, it's okay. Listen, this is a podcast. We could tell all the long stories. I love stories.
Okay, great. So I gotten laid off 3 times in my career. Of course, never my fault, but who cares whether it is or not. On the 3rd time, I was literally 50 years old and decided that's it. I'm not going to go through that ever again. I'm going to take control over my life. So what do I have to do? I was on the edge of semi-retirement at that point, but I thought I have too much more stuff I want to do in life. So I did what the books on self-help tell you to do, which is find something you love to do and see if you can make money doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I love presentations. I love standing in front of a group of people and what you said a moment ago, taking whatever it is I'm sharing with them and inspiring them somehow, some way. Right? Yeah. It's not about me. It's about them. I always want to make the audience the hero in my talks and workshops, not me. And so it's just like, that's what I love to do. So what do I do? I'll just hold my shield out and say I'm a coach. See where it goes.
Yeah.
One thing led to another. And here we are 15 years later. It's been a full-time love. I don't feel like I've worked a day in those 15 years because it's what I love to do. And I must say, the first few years were the toughest, of course, like in any solopreneur business or entrepreneurial startup. But after that 2nd, 3rd year, that flywheel started to spin on its own a little bit and business started growing, and it's been completely word of mouth. Here we are.
What I love about, first of all, I've made a note of it because I think this is so brilliant. You said, I make the audience the hero, not me. And that is amazing because I was thinking about it from the context of like, again, online marketing and like, Instagram, YouTube. And I think one of the mistakes that I myself have made and I know other people have made is that people will tell stories about how we overcame X, Y, and Z, which is inspiring, yeah. But like, what's more inspiring is no, you could do this, and here's how you can do this, and I want you to paint this picture of how you will do it. Like, that's way more compelling. No one gives a shit about me. Like, that's the first thing I learned in sales. No one gives a shit about you.
In a way, you really have hit it. And there's a whole lot of information on what's called the hero's journey storytelling.
Yeah,
But we've just identified for the audience is that, hey, you got to get out of your own heads and realize that you are the Yoda of what's happening here. Luke is the hero. So who's the Luke in your life? Whether it's
yeah.
the audience or a person, your family.
No, that's fascinating too, because that also speaks to. There's a moment. I don't. I won't speak for you. This happened to me, where it was only last year that I came around to the idea that I'm just here to serve. And for whatever reason, I had this thing in my head of like I had a chip on my shoulder. So I grew up poor. Father went away to prison, like the whole nine. And so it was all about me. I'm growing a business. It was almost like this fighting. I'm gonna push my way. No one wants me. Like nobody like, one of the things I actually said. This wasn't even a year ago. This was recent for the workshop. I said no one's gonna ask me to speak on their stage. Fuck it. I'm gonna make my own stage. And I created the workshop. But that's very aggressive. And then there's a moment that I had this kind of aha moment where I go, no, I'm here to help other people in their journey. I'm here to help people remove their excuses, their obstacles, hence why I'm doing the podcast. And so once that happened, I don't know if this is the same for you, business was way easier. One, I enjoyed it more. Two, like if somebody told me no, I never took it personally because it was like, I'm just here to serve. If you don't want it, then no problem. I'll find somebody else. Right. Like it became easier. And it's so fascinating because I don't know why, but it took me a while to figure that out. Was that similar for you or what, did you figure that out early?
I had that already in my mind because I started reading self-help books at 17 years old. And I knew from that age that when you do things in service of others, you will have a better life. I learned that very early on. And my mom was an example of that. She would help people in the neighborhood who had skin diseases and she'd go over and massage their arms and their legs in the evening for 15 minutes before dinner just to give back. And while she was never paid to do that, that was a lesson of help others and your life should be more fulfilled. And I can tell you from many years, I'm 65 today, it's true. Dale Carnegie's right. When you help enough other people get what they want out of life, or maybe it's not Dale Carnegie. Who said this? I'll think of it later.
A lot of people.
Zig Ziglar. I think he gives credit for you help enough other people get out of their lives what they want, and you'll live a very fulfilled life. I will second that for sure.
There's another book too. If you haven't read, he's a kind of a mentor of mine. His name's Joe Polish. He wrote the book "What's in It for Them," which is like kind of like an updated version, if you will, of that. But it obviously it speaks to the same thing. But what's interesting about hearing you talk about your mom, I think that's why I had this thing in my head was from my mom. So my mom was a seamstress. She was the first entrepreneur I knew, and she was a seamstress for wedding dresses. But it was the opposite. I had the opposite response. So she would do things for people, go above and beyond, and if they needed, hey, I couldn't make this payment, she'd always be like, it's okay, I just want you to have a great wedding. But because of that, we were evicted from our home a lot. We struggled. We were on, so she took it to this other side of she overly served, if that's even a thing, or actually, if you ask Joe Polish in his book, she was serving the wrong people.
There you go. That's what I would say. She gave
and so
people.
But I correlated that with like, no, that's people just going to take advantage of you. But again, later on in life is when I realized, oh no, it's just you have to do that for the right people,
and the best that you can, because you can't knock it out of the park. You can't judge 100% of the people that you're going to devote your in service to as being quote unquote worth it, so to speak. It's hard to. I wouldn't even bother with that because then you're putting conditions on your service, on what you do for people. And unconditional giving or unconditional coaching, if you're being paid for it or not, is you do it for the right reasons. And when you do things for being in service of others, that's one of the pillars of credibility. when you stand up in front of people and they know that you're doing it for them and you are there for them, they trust you more, they want more from you, they like you more, they'll be more in touch with you, they'll talk about you more because you've helped them. I mean, think about it. Think about the top 2 or 3 people. All of us right now can think of the top 2 or 3 people in our lives that helped us. That we can, oh yeah, I remember that guy and that guy and that guy.
Yeah. I think one of the things I kind of want to get to too, like going to the speaking side, is all those people, they were in person. And I can't think of anybody, right, that I'm like, this person changed my life. And I never met them in person because there's something that happens in person. So when, you know, the world shut down and all of that. And then I know that you had a workshop about it was how to captivate your audience online.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about, was that like, I don't want to say stressful, but like annoying to you? Like, I feel like for me, because like now that I've done public speaking in person, because I've done a lot of webinars and those things, and yes, it was fun, it was exhilarating and all those things, but like, again, doing my workshop, I was like, it started to be a thing originally that I was going to do it once a year. Now we're doing it once a quarter because I had so much, I was like, I need that. You know, it's a totally different thing. So I guess in your experience, I would imagine when we talking about selling, especially selling one to many, in person, on stage has to be the best way, right? And then maybe webinar second.
I'll take a little exception with the rating.
Okay.
Because it all depends on the situation
Okay.
in many cases. But I agree with you. I spent my whole first dozen years traveling the world, getting up on those stages, feeling what you've just described. And it's awesome. Meeting people beforehand, asking them questions, seeing them come to life in the room. And when they're not doing something unexpected, and they do all of a sudden come to life, and then at the end, they just can't wait to come up to the stage and get your business card, shake hands with you, ask you a question, have lunch, blah. I miss that a lot. And the virtual world is still an undiscovered world for a lot of people. They still think it's a camera with a screen and a microphone. That's what they think it is. I'm here to tell you that when Skype added video to their audio free calling to the world, I knew one day we would all be on video, whether synchronous like you and I are right now, or asynchronous, where I send you a message, you send me back a message, and we go back and forth, like voicemail, but with video. Well, the virtual world is so amazing. And I will tell you, I'm not looking forward to getting back into the live world again. I'm not. I am having such a blast here. I've completely kitted out my bedroom here with a full setup as if I was in a studio with a camera, microphones, a Rodecaster Pro 2 box, stream decks, multiple screens, cameras, big green screen behind me because it's my life. When the pandemic hit, I thought, oh, shoot, no more travel. All right. Spent a couple $1,000, upgraded my kit here. And now I want to tell you, I have taken every single thing that I have done in person. And there's 42 things on my list right now. Every single thing that I used to do in person, I have now translated over to the virtual world to have an equal or better result. I'm getting better results online. I can do 4 exercises in 1 hour. Any number of people. In person, maybe 1.5, 2. You give me 50 people, I say, pair up. Do you know how long that takes in person?
It takes time, yeah.
Okay, now let's, a 5-minute exercise. I'm going to set the clock, and then we'll come back. How long does that take? You've been there. Half hour. Half hour, easily. Online, click, boom. You got 5 minutes. Yeah. And when that clock stops, they all come back. It's like, oh my God, I can actually now have a sequence of exercises that build up into something better.
I love the perspective because I think I heard Tony Robbins talking about it when that happened. He transitioned to online. He has a huge screen, obviously, so you can see everybody. And then he did the numbers, and pretty much it was like now he could have, unlimited amount more people. Like, it was really funny to hear him talk about it because it's like only Tony Robbins, right? But like, he contacted Zoom and was like, yeah, I'm not having only 500 people. Figure it out. Figure it out. Get way more. I need like thousands. And they're like, okay. Well, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, you have a week. but yeah. So no, I think I can see it. I don't know. I just, even like with the podcast, for example, I was just telling my fiance Kayla about this. I said, we'll do it maybe in the next year or so. But I was like, I want an in-person studio so I can sit with the person and like talk. Because it's like, I do love virtual. And granted, my entire career has been virtual, and maybe that's what it is. And it's like, not that I'm tired of it, but it's just, I just want to hug people, man. I just want to see you. I want to pick up the energy, and it's just one of those things where now that I've done it, I'm kind of hooked.
I'm with you. I want to get back into the hugging world as well, even if it's not as safe as I'd like it to be, but one day it will be.
Yeah.
I'm with you, though. The in studio, having people come in and doing that, what we're doing right now, the major difference, besides the fact that we can't shake hands, the biggest difference here is sort of unnoticeable by most people. I'll share it with you. Mm-hmm. And that is, most people are not looking at their audience in the virtual world. Mm-hmm. They're looking at a screen with those people on it. That is not them. The rub here is that I'm looking straight into my camera right now. I'm not looking at you on the screen, because if I was, it would look more like this.
Yeah.
And how are we going to have a conversation like this when I know you and 99% of the other people in the world are not looking into their cameras? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but if I want to make eye contact with my audience, and you, at least in this TV world, you got to look into the camera. And it's like, whoa, oh yeah, I guess if I look into the camera, everyone, and you can't make eye contact with everybody in a room of 100 people, can you, at the same time?
Yeah, true.
And in the virtual world, you could have thousands. Tony Robbins makes eye contact with every single freaking person on them that's watching, because he knows to look right into the throat of the camera. The lens, I should say.
Yeah.
And believe me, I envy what he's done in the virtual world, because, but he has an army of people behind him with an army of computers, Alienware, iCore, they have dozens and dozens of computers to do what they do. But it is an excellent example of where the world is going. He's a pioneer
with the virtual reality side. Like, when that comes, that makes a lot of sense too. I wanted to ask you though. So obviously, as a presenting coach, I mean, like, how many? What was your talk on, your keynote, so to speak, before you became a coach? I would imagine you were traveling and doing presentations and then became a coach, or what was that transition like? Like, how did that happen?
Well, when I got laid off for the third time, I literally decided to just be a coach to help other people do better demos. So I zeroed in on product demos, and I went back to the companies and tried to get their sales department to let me help their SEs, be better at demoing. And that worked for about a year and a half. I even wrote a book giving memorable product demos and had it published, but couldn't really compete with the existing cats on the block.
Yeah.
So one day I was over at a very famous law firm here called DLA Piper in Palo Alto for an event. And I bumped into this woman who said, "Nathan, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I coach people for giving product demos." "Oh, really? Interesting." And she said, "Well, do you ever coach entrepreneurs on how to raise money?" No, not exactly, but I'm pretty sure the same skills apply.
Yeah.
She said, "Well, how about this? I have 3 companies here at DLA Piper that our attorneys have deferred their fees to. If we can help them raise their money faster, then we can get paid. Would you help these companies? Sign me up." So we did a little workshop. Next thing I know, I'm getting 3 entrepreneurs every week. And 3 times 3 years adds up to a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And it's been a ride. My beginning was mostly helping entrepreneurs raise pre-seed, seed, and Series A money. The Series B, very rare. I mean, if you need a coach for Series B, you're
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. And then after all of the investors and all of that stuff, then those companies would come back to me and say, can you help me present to a customer now? So that's where I developed the other side of my business of not just helping people pitch to investors, which is a rare group of people. I mean, it's typically only the CEO and or a co-founder, but how to present to a customer or a partner or a distributor to do business with them, everybody does that. So that's how I expanded my business, by just moving over to that area of presentation. It's all the same thing. It's all about storytelling and rapport. And
Well, what I love about it too is that it's such a natural progression, but also too, you did the most the smartest thing ever, which is like you just listen to the market. Hey, do you do this? Like that's been like so we have an agency for Elevated. We help coaches and consultants be omnipresent, right? So we create YouTube videos and Instagram reels, and basically you'll be everywhere working with us. On top of like we'll work on people's offers. Well, that agency didn't happen because I was like, I want to create an agency. It was happened because I had somebody I was on the phone with go, hey, could you do this for me? Like, Raylan, you're everywhere. Can you do that for me? And I go, yeah, sure. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just said, yes. All right. And then I already had the team. So I was like, all right, guys, like we're going to do this for 10 more people. And that's what happened. So it's interesting because it's like, that's usually how it happens. It's like, you don't mean to do it. It's just people are, hey, can you do this? And you're like, yeah, I mean, I'll figure it out.
especially as an entrepreneur or solopreneur, when all you're doing really is being paid to talk, right? I was coming along 4 or 5 years into the business, and one of my best clients said, Nathan, most of the people we're going to have at the event next month have already seen you, they know you, they've heard you. What could you do that's different? Well, I've always been wanting to do a talk on how to network. Really? Wow, perfect. So there you go.
Yeah. That's usually how it happens.
You say yes to something like that. I made so much money off of that one talk, not that day,
Yeah.
but because of the reaction that I got from it. I did a very different talk on networking, but because of the reaction I got that day, I thought, this is a new workshop of mine. Boom, on the website. I started doing it 8, 10, 12 times a year and being paid decent money to do it. Because it involved exercises and things to do, so it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people are missing is that, like, I've seen a lot of online people today that do workshops and master classes, but and this is kind of like what made us different was I designed a workshop. I do it every month for our coaching academy. It's like a mastermind for newer coaches, but basically the idea was, hey, for 20 minutes, I'm going to teach you a concept, or one of our coaches will teach you a concept, but for 40 minutes, you're doing the fucking work. Because what I saw was that there's so many people were just talking for like an hour and a half. I don't know about you, but I get bored after 10 minutes. I'm like, all right, well, I've heard this before, and okay, whatever. And I'm like, I'm out, right? Especially online, like, you got to keep everybody engaged. And so I have like strict rules with our workshop, like cameras on. If I see you dicking around, like, I'm going to call you out. Like, I'm just like, granted, you got to keep in mind, first of all, I think I should warn our guests, like, when we come on, like, I swear a lot also. I should probably start with that. But anyway, but our brand is tough love. And so that's why, like, we call people out. But all right, so on the note of selling to clients, what mistakes are you seeing people do online when it comes to inspiring, I'll say, like, inspiring their audience to move forward? For me, not enough people, including myself, I had to go back to the drawing board. We're not telling stories enough. Like, I look around and I think it's because of the short form. Everyone's doing these 10-second things, and that's why recently all of our agency clients, I've been getting them away. Yes, we still do short form, but I'm like, let's go back to long form. I'm going to design you a show for your podcast and then a YouTube thing, because that way you have some breathing room. But for you, I guess, what is, again, some mistakes people are making with the way that they're selling, online, so to speak?
Well, I'd say that, first of all, many of us are getting addicted to the YouTube shorts. And so no matter what you do in long form, you still need one of those little things to get people sometimes to go over there.
Yeah, it's the top of the funnel, yeah.
In a way, yeah, in the top of a funnel. So the mistakes. not providing enough value, but only promise. And why do I say that? Because one of the things I learned very early in my coaching career, and I hope anyone who's listening takes this to heart, because it absolutely made the most sense to me, when about a year into coaching, I was talking to my coach. And I said, Mark, I'm getting nervous. People starting to video my workshops. They're starting to post it on YouTube. This is like 14 years ago. Posting it on YouTube. And what am I going to do when all my content is out there? He said, what do you mean? You're not paid to provide content to the world. You're paid to coach people. You can't capture coaching in a video. Yeah, you can show how you coach one person or a bunch. It's not about the content. It's about the coaching. So I realized at that moment, it doesn't matter what my content is, so long as it's inspiring. And to that point, I was scared to death for my first couple of years, thinking, I don't have anything that's Nathan Gold's. I'm not a Nancy Duarte of the world who helped Al Gore put one of the most famous presentations together in the whole wide world. I'm not one of those people. So what do I do here? The secret, and I discovered this accidentally, was I found experts in the world like Simon Sinek, who had this thing called the Golden Circle he talked about in 2009. And when I found that in 2010, I started telling people about it. And they would say, damn, what an amazing talk. Thank you for introducing him to me. I had three or four of those kinds. Dale Carnegie, Cialdini for the persuasion. I'd introduce people to all these experts. And I realized one day, damn, Nathan, all you're doing is quoting the experts, and people love you. And they pay you for this. Keep doing that. So I realized, take the pressure off. I don't have to have something that Nathan owns as his own IP. It's all been said before, and I tell people it's all been said before.
Yeah.
But the coaching, there's an art form to coaching, to get people to do what we need to do as coaches, whether you're a presentation coach like me or a MMA fighter coach or, whatever you're looking to do. We need to get people to do things and practice and prepare. That's what coaches are for.
Yeah, I think I remember talking to a few people, because some of our clients have been in the game for a long time, but they didn't understand online. And I always say, like, our number one strategy is to out-free the competition. So all of your stuff, I'm putting on YouTube. And I remember a couple of our clients were like, no, but like, what if? I go, look, they're paying for access to you. So this is simply to get them to go, oh man, what would it be like if Nathan was my coach? And then with all of that, and also too, it's like, especially with YouTube being like the second, best search optimization, search optimization engine ever, is like, if I can get people to say anything when it comes to presentations to Google you, because they want to learn from you, you won. And so it's so fascinating, because again, like, a lot of people, like, even, for example, our workshops, after about a month, we usually put them on YouTube. And again, I have people going, why are you doing that? People are paying to come, like, to be in the mastermind, because they're paying to be there and to be able to ask the question.
It's the experience they're paying for. Anybody can watch a video, but that experience they get in the live experience, whether it's in person or virtual, is the key to coaching and getting paid big bucks to coach, is providing an experience to your audience that they never forget.
Yeah.
What was that?
So another question I wanted to ask you, because I know, again, I know actually a couple, presentation coaches that I've met through, like, online, the great people. And I'm curious for you, like, what has been your favorite lead generation source? Does that change for you, or do you have kind of a tried and true? And the reason I ask, again, is because there's a lot of coaches that are, like, trying to figure out, how do I get leads consistently? They're trying all these hacks and whatever. And for me, what I have found is just give people a way to raise their hand, put in their information. you reach out to them, and you get them on a call. It's like that's the simplest fucking funnel in the world, but people want to sexy it up too much. So I'm just curious for you, what has been your way that you've consistently, gotten new clients or kept clients for that matter? Like, what's been your strategy?
Believe it or not, give it all away. Here's an example. A few years into my business, I had a workshop called How to Pitch to Investors with 13 Slides in Under 10 Minutes. Okay? People were paying me good money to come in and do that workshop live, occasionally online, but mostly in person. Get on an airplane, get paid business class, nice hotels, come in and do a 2-hour workshop, go home. And they would pay me good money to do that. My coach said, Nathan, you got to put a recording of that on YouTube. Well, if I do that, Mark, then I won't be able to charge for it anymore. He says, no, you don't get it. They're paying for the experience. So I went into my garage. I picked up my flip camera back then, 480p, and I recorded it nonstop, literally just nonstop, blah, blah, blah. 30-minute video. Oh, my God, by today's standards, it's crazy. Would you believe that today, and I never put ads on it, today, 2022, I'm still getting people writing, thank you so much. I got so much out of this video. I probably get at least 10 paying leads a year from that video that I posted over a decade ago. It's got over 250,000 views. Put it out there. Give it away. And by the way, I gave it away. Like everything I do in the workshop, I gave it away. And I thought, I'm dead. And no, in fact, that amplified the value in the audience's mind of what I could do when they meet me. And that's the message to coaches. Give it all away. You're nothing special. Yeah, maybe you invented some little special thing, but just give it away. Yeah, maybe they'll name something after you one day. Congratulations. Just go help people. Help enough people.
Well, first of all, I mean, YouTube's such a powerful thing, and that's why I even said to you, like, I saw that you did create some stuff on YouTube, and it sounds like you're going to be doing it more here in the future. But like, YouTube is so powerful because like on Instagram, it's gone in a day, right? YouTube, it lasts forever for the most part. You can generate you leads forever, especially if it's something that's important. And you made such a great point. Like in jiu-jitsu, we say like you don't ever invent a move, you discover them. And so one of the things that, like, when being a coach, like when I first started, I struggled with the same thing. I used to say like, well, I'm not saying anything that's mine. And so it's like, why would anybody, but what I realized was that my gift was I could read 2 books about completely different things, and I see a through line that not many people saw. And I'm also able to decode success in a way that other people can't. And so it became this thing like, no, just like you, like I'm a curator of information, and I have an ability to get you to actually fucking execute on it. Because if you could execute on it, guess what? You'd read the same books as me and get the same results, but you don't. So that's why you hire a coach, right?
That's right. That's right. And for me, I believe one of the most important things that I forget how I came to this realization. It was probably reading a book on coaching or something and storytelling. But there's that imposter syndrome that we feel, whether you're a coach or in life, but that imposter syndrome as a coach can easily be set to the side. If you truly believe in what you're doing for people is valuable, obviously you have to validate that with people somehow. Getting results or getting paid obviously are the way to validate that. But our job as a coach, honestly, is we don't have to say anything. We just have to tell good stories that have good points, that use concision. And here's the magic. Ask the right questions at the right fucking time. If all you did was ask the right question at the right time, you will change lives. You don't have to say shit. Sorry, but you don't.
It's okay.
I almost started. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, like, I think that's what people are, because everyone can call themselves a coach today.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think we need more coaches, in fact. But one of the things I've tried to talk a lot about, because again, I've said this a lot, but coming from my background, right? it was skill development. Like our coaches back when I wrestled in college and whatever, like there was no, hey, here's a huge lecture on whatever. No, it's like, here's the move. Now you go do the move, and you're going to do it until you get good at it. All right, now go. And so like I brought that kind of concept. There's another book called Practice Perfect. It's a book from teachers actually. And that was one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite books. It's a yellow book. It's private because it breaks down skill development and the importance of repetition. There's another book called $1 Trillion Coach, and it was about Bill Campbell, who was the coach of the founders of Google, Steve Jobs, so on and so forth. And the same thing. He talks about the importance. Now, granted, he didn't write the book. It was his clients who wrote it after he passed away. And what's interesting about that book is when they asked him basically on his deathbed, like, hey, can we do this? All he said back to him was like, don't fuck it up, which is like so funny. But anyway, again, his style of coaching, he used to do this thing, which is so fascinating. He would get with the people and he would write on the board before they got there what he thought was important for them to work on that day. And he'd cover it up. And he would ask you, all right, Nathan, what do you think we should be working on? And basically, if your thing was off from his, it was a communication about why are you not seeing what I'm seeing? Like what's going on? And if it was the same, all right, cool. So again, that's another great book. So I guess my question to you now would be like, for those that are wanting to improve on the skill set, 'cause I think what's happening to a lot of coaches is like, we've focused so much on lead generation, sales, how can I make money, that we don't work on the skill set of coaching in and of itself. So what advice would you give to people about how do I inspire somebody, my client, to come to the realization on their own? Like, how do I get them to see what I see so they can take action? Because as you know, like if I tell you, Nathan, you need to do this, you're not going to fucking do it. Like, but if I get you to come to that idea yourself, I used to call it like Inception based on the movie, right? If I can, get in your mind and get you to come to the idea yourself, you're actually going to execute on it. So what advice would you give to those that are wanting to improve their coaching skill?
It's an easy answer, my friend. Stop making statements and ask more questions. By asking people more questions, you will lead them to their own answers. Won't we?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So here's an exercise that people can try. And I'm going to tell you, I haven't done it myself yet, but I am planning to start a thing. And I'll use this as a way to let you know. You tell me what you think of this idea.
Okay.
A day of only questions. Where for the entire day, everybody we talk to, everything we do must be in the form of a question.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to, I've done it for a couple of hours, but I'm a coach. So I challenge myself. And this is what you can do as a coach. Challenge yourself. The next time you speak to somebody, even in a discovery call where you're not being paid and you're trying to persuade them to take that next step, try making that entire discovery call only questions. Okay?
So like there was again, I did some like sales consulting, for like corporations or whatever. And that was one of my exercises. Now we didn't do it for the whole day. We did it for like 5 minutes, but you can see the game is you get with a partner and whoever says the statement first loses. And it's just to show how fucking hard, like because like we do this thing where we say statements so often. And also I think another part of it is a lack of patience. So I have to remind myself and be really conscious of this because I do a lot of talking. Like again, my mastermind, I'm like the host of the thing and I'm doing a lot of content. So I'm talking a lot, but then one of the, like I remember getting a coaching call and it was like 10 minutes in and I was doing all the talking and I was like, I'm breaking my own rules. Like crap. So you have to I have to constantly, but it's because it's a patient thing. It's like, I want to hurry up and get you to the result. So that way we can, but again, that doesn't work. I don't care how many times you tell somebody to do something. You got to get them to come to the idea themselves.
I agree. Because the more you do it, the easier it gets. Mm-hmm. I mean, as soon as somebody pitches me for 5 minutes, I can tell them exactly where they're losing their audiences, what's wrong with the opening, what's wrong with the in like seconds. Mm-hmm. And so once you can help somebody with that, the next step is, how do you deliver that information? And this goes for any type of coaching. You know exactly what they need to do. You've been an MMA fighter for how long? You know, stop doing this with your hand instead of this. And they just need like 6 weeks of doing that and to experience the, right? So it's how do you deliver the coaching is part of the art of coaching.
I used to say too that like, oh, sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
I was just going to say tough love is my least favorite way to go. But when I do tough love, I just have so much fun with it these days because now I can just
give people the tough love that they need right now.
Dude,
before I say, hey, listen, I've got some tough love for you. Are you ready? And they go, uh-oh. And now I don't even do that because I just have fun with it.
What's funny about this? So we have a newsletter called Tough Love Tuesdays, and it came because one of my clients said, "Did you ever notice that you always do this thing where you say, hey, you know, I love you, right?" And then you say the most meanest shit in the world. And I was like, I didn't realize I was doing that. And she's like, you know, you do this thing where you'll say, hey, you're fucking up, but I love you. And so she's like, it's kind of like tough love. And so it was like, all right, well, I guess that's our brand. Like, it was just one of those things. But I think, you know, for me, it's like, it's a pattern interrupter for sure. And actually, I learned that, speaking of, we said that before, it was Tony Robbins. Because he does that a lot, right? Like, my favorite thing was in the documentary, I'm Not Your Guru. It was on Netflix, and there's a scene, super emotional scene where this guy was like, "Yo, I wanted to kill myself before this. I've been, you know, depressed. I didn't even want to come here." And he's like in tears. And Tony Robbins goes, "Was it the shoes?" And he was like, "What?" And he was like, "Your shoes, they're ugly. Was it because of that?" And he starts laughing, right? So what did he do? All he did was like got your mind off that track really quick. And then he did this thing. He'd do the like, and don't fuck it up in his like, you know, Tony Robbins. And okay, but what is that though? Is it to scare him? No, it's just to get your mind off of that track you're on, which is just so fascinating to me. But anyway, okay. So as we wrap up here, I want to ask you a couple more questions. Sure. What I love about your website too, and everyone needs to go check it out. Obviously, the link will be in the description. But you give away your story matrix.
Yes.
And so tell me about storytelling. Like, you know, what people can do to be better storytellers. Because, again, one of the things that I'm coming back to even for myself is, all right, how can I tell better stories? And I think Will Storr wrote a book called The Science of Storytelling. Have you read that yet?
I have not.
Oh, it's fascinating.
There are dozens.
It's fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's based on the one that I found. This one was interesting to me anyway, because obviously there's a hero's journey. There's all this, you know, kind of ones. What I liked about this one is it talks about the neuroscience of what's actually happening when there's stories and all those things. So anyway, what advice would you give to people about storytelling and just your thoughts on storytelling in general?
Okay. First of all, the story matrix is not my intellectual property. I want to give credit where credit is due. There was a book I read called oh my God, Craig is going to be so upset with me. Craig Wortman.
I do it all the time.
Think of it afterward. In his book, he talked about this thing called the story matrix. And he said to his audience that he now presents all the time in person and on virtual, he said, a story matrix is basically allowing you to get the data out of your head so that you have a place where you can put triggers to the stories that are happening in your life so that in a year, 2, 3, or whenever you can look at it and say, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that one. And so a story matrix for my clients is a way for me to get them to start keeping track of the stories they will potentially use in their presentations, in their TED Talk, or in an investor pitch, or with customers especially.
Yeah.
So all a matrix is, it's just a Word document in the cloud that you just keep track of your stories, which leads me to the other half of the answer. And that is how to tell better stories. My rub on that is this. Every story on the planet can be told in one sentence. Learn how to inspire or tease your audience with the one sentence of what your story is about, and then go from there. And this goes right into Hollywood. I didn't make this up. It's called a log line. It's actually a term for it for the people who have never heard that before. When you submitted a script to a director or a producer in the old days, I don't know what they do today, the person logging the script would write one sentence about what the story was about, or it would be on the spine of the script. And as the director's flipping through the scripts, if they didn't see a log line that said something like, think cowboys and Indians, but in space, they wouldn't open it up and develop a series called Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So
think cowboys and Indians in space.
Right. So every story, every play, every movie can be summarized in one sentence when you tell people what the story is about. Oh, that reminds me of the time when this happened to me. Wouldn't you like to know more about that? Of course I want to know more about that. You just gave me the log line, that one sentence. So if you start with your log line, then you can expand on that based on the situation, the time, the audience, and the purpose of that story. And use concision. Use concision. Cut out the fluff.
Yeah, I think what's really cool, like a good action item for that would be, again, for YouTube, right, where your hook is even, let's combine the two, right? It's a question, but it's a long line question, right? So it'd be like, you know, have you ever noticed? It's like, well, that's one of my favorite things. Like, have you ever noticed? And then blah. Well, that's a pretty good hook, and then you can go right into your story, and then maybe the action items from there.
Mm-hmm. My favorite takeaway from Anthony Robbins is 2 words, and I probably use them as frequently as he uses them, and that is, and I use this in my coaching all the time because it kind of softens the whole question that's coming. I'm just curious, or I'm curious. Boom. Ask your question. When you use I'm curious, it just makes it easier for them to tell you the answer, I find. And I've watched him do that since 1987 when I first saw him in a workshop.
I think the other part of that, other half of that too, is probably for you, it sets the intention.
Yes.
Right? So like it helps you be curious. Like, I'm curious.
I want to be curious.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe we can learn something from everybody we meet. And some people call me out on that and say, BS, you can't learn something from everybody. Oh, yes, you can. I learned how not to be a dad from my father for years.
Yeah.
And he never told me anything about it. He just by actions, right? So we can learn from everybody. And if I'm curious, like you say, my brain is going to go more into curiosity mode. And I'll ask better questions.
Yeah, and I think, and that's something too, what's interesting about the whole intention thing is like, I had to, part of the reason why I started this podcast was because I was getting, it sounds negative, but like I was getting to the point where I could tell that I wasn't asking enough questions anymore. And I was telling people, like and I was like, I used to have the podcast before, and I was like, I think it'd be fascinating, to show other coaches how they built their businesses, what they're doing, why they're doing it, share skill sets, all that other stuff. But selfishly, I was like, can I do it and get better at asking questions and like get better at trying to get the most out of people? Because like for me, again, selfishly, maybe not so selfishly, when I do these podcasts, it's important to me, can I show people why you're so fascinating? Because the whole point is like, I know every single person. I'll just kind of tell you this really quick and then we'll jump out of here. But when I first started as a coach, I partnered with some people that was like very much that would kind of be in this world of like, if you're not a millionaire, you don't know shit. Oh. And it bothered me because I was like, I have a skill set. Plus I've met people with skill sets. Just because you're not a millionaire yet, or you haven't developed a successful business in terms of monetary value, doesn't mean you don't have a skill set that other people need and that other people can use. And so it became this thing, and my whole thing became I want to find the undiscovered thought leader. And then that's kind of where the podcast came, was like, and also my entire agency, because there's tons of people in my agency, for example, that they've been doing it for, whatever they do for like 30 years. Like I have this brilliant, one of our clients is a conflict management specialist, and he helps people de-escalate conversation or a conflict. But I think even more fascinating to him is that him and his wife have been together, I can't remember how many decades, but they've never fought once. And so he talks about, I'm like, the fact that no one knows this about you bothers me. And so it became this mission of like, I want everyone to fucking know who you are. You know what I mean? And so I think I say all that to say that what I love about what you do more than anything is, yes, you're a presentation coach, but you're giving people a voice to be able to tell better stories, but also to inspire more people. And like for us, it's really important at Elevated that we help people remove excuses so they can realize they deserve more. And it's through your clients that they get to tell their stories and inspire audiences. So my point of saying all that was, thank you for what you do, man.
Oh, you're welcome. I love helping people with this stuff, and whether I get paid for it or not. And I do set aside 5 hours every month of pro bono work because I do not want to say no to everybody that can't afford me. And I've been doing that for years and years and years. And the best part of that, honestly, is people do not ever expect that as an answer from me when they say, listen, I really can't afford you, but I got this TED talk coming up. It's like, well, I can take some out of the bank and put it on the table. And they almost come to tears sometimes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And that shows me that I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm doing it to be in service of others. And if they take it that way, then I know, okay, I'm doing it for the right reasons. May I add one more thing
Of course.
to this? Okay. One of the biggest realizations that I had in storytelling and asking questions as a coach came about 3 years ago from a gentleman named Cal Fussman. This is not a commercial for Cal Fussman, but Cal Fussman is a renowned journalist who's interviewed a few people that you might have heard about, such as Serena Williams, Muhammad Ali, Gorbachev. Had breakfast with Larry King every day for a year. He has stories that, go on and on and on. And the thing that I learned from him that changed my career as a coach, literally, the day he said, the best questions are the questions you ask somebody where they don't immediately have the answer, where they have to go back in their heads a little bit, rather than, once you get through the wind and weather kind of questions, and the origin story kind of questions. When you say something like, so Raylan, what's one thing from your childhood that you still use in everyday life today that you learned from your parents? Most people don't have an immediate answer to any questions like that. And that's what he taught me. You have your audience when you get them in that state of, got to find the answer to that question. So when, as a coach, I look for an opportunity where I can do that, don't start with that because that's a bit heavy for people.
Yeah.
But I get them to a point where I say, so I'm just curious what, and then I would ask them a question where I know they're not going to have the answer. And I love just being silent while they're figuring it out. I just sit there and wait. It's great.
Again, this goes back to even the question thing. That's another skill set that I think as coaches we can improve on is the power of silence.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Sitting there in silence and then waiting for them to come to the idea.
That's our job, is helping them come up with the idea. If we're talking all the time, how are they going to come up with the idea?
Yeah. Well, I think my biggest takeaway that I've remembered because of you now is I talk too fucking much. So thank you, Nathan. I appreciate that.
Well, as an obvious visual reminder, we have 2 of these and 1 of these. All we need to do is use them in that proportion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Thank you for listening to The Elevated Entrepreneur. If you want to check out more about the guest, look at the description below. And as always, if you're a beginner coach or even someone that's seasoned and you're looking to join a community of like-minded individuals, learn about branding, lead generation, sales, you name it, think about applying to the Elevated Coaches Academy. You can learn more about that in the description below. I look forward to having you in the next episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Stay motivated, stay elevated.